support mental well-being, but also you run a nightclub where people maybe have their well-being decreased as a result of that.
That's a battle that I fight a lot, and that's one of the reasons I do all the community stuff I do. I think it's like yin and yang, like it's
Trying to make up for it.
yeah, because I sell poison for a living. I sell alcohol, right? And I don't drink it much myself anyway. Like I never have been mad with it, but so with one breath, I'm creating an environment that can put people in certain states that I might not fully like. And then with another side of me, I'm trying to mend that. I'm hoping that the good that I do here will outweigh the bad once I meet that person at the end of the line.
I don't think this is true. The cynic in me is like, you could play this as some big money game where like, and in fairness, to some extent, big pharmaceuticals, big processed food, they work together. They generate money off they have an interest in keeping poor people sick and then selling them drugs. I'm obviously not saying that's
No,
what you're
no,
doing.
but I don't make any money out of what
Of
I haven't
course,
made any money out of
course.
the club for a year. It's fucked for a start.
I mean,
I'll
you
give you that
invest
as
all
an
that money and then
exclusive
it was
if you want.
lockdown. Yeah, yeah.
As in like that business, the late night economy at the moment in the UK is ruined. Late night. So bars are okay and restaurants are okay, but the late night, like nightclubs at the moment, are really struggling.
Just demand is down.
Yeah, so
supply
massive
costs are.
behavioural change in the youngsters. Massive behavioural
Really?
change, yeah. So during lockdown, they've discovered new things. Like freshers now, when I speak to the guy, one of the heads at uni, on a Monday, when he asks the freshers how their weekend was, they used to say something along the lines of, "We went here, here, and here, had a bag of ketamine, had a session, was in a kitchen till 6 a.m., all this kind of stuff, hanging." He says now they say went for a hike over the Purbex, had a barbecue and non-alcoholic gin. So he said like there's been a massive shift, and I'm buzzing about that because I'm buzzing that the younger generation don't need alcohol for pleasure and they can go out and walk on nature and get pleasure. But it's commercial suicide for me as well. So like, but I'll sit on this podcast, I'll sit everywhere and say, you don't need alcohol to have good, you don't need alcohol to have fun. You don't need it at all in your life. You don't need to smoke. You don't need to take drugs. You don't need to. But if you do, I'm not judging you. Like, that's on you. I'm not saying at Halo, I'm saying in general. Like, who am I to judge you and your decisions? Like, no one. I've been judged my whole life. I'm not going to judge you. There's no judgment here. You want to confide in me in something, you confide in me, whether that's good, bad, or ugly. If you want my advice, I'll give you my advice. If you don't, I'll just listen because that's a good friend. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not. Sometimes I feel with the religion and non-religion thing as well. As I said to you, there's like this kind of
The high ground.
yeah. It's like you're doing this, this, and this. That's cool, bro. Like I'm doing this. You do you. I'm doing me. Like I'm not interfering with your life. I'm not creating any badness around you. If you know what I mean. You ring me for anything, I'd be there for you tomorrow, regardless of our difference in views or not in views. If you know what I mean.
But to some extent, that's because we don't want to be held accountable for something, and we want to be able to live the different thing. And you don't judge me so long as you don't. Won't judge you so long as you won't judge me.
Maybe.
And that kind of thing. But
maybe yeah.
But I do want to pick up on just the point of the church is that, and you having this philanthropist element of you in wanting to do good and hold people's well-being to a high degree, and also being involved with the club, is you could also ask the question, and I guess I'm just making the defense for you, but you'd ask the question, well, if you were to just pack up shop tomorrow, someone else is going to come in and replace that. Therefore, you just want to do that. Now that that's a thing, you can't change it. I don't want to liken this to something else, but in my head, this is how I see the Second Amendment in America. It's like, sure, guns are everywhere. You can't have a recall. People are very attached to the guns. So let's work with it and do it the best that we can. And I think now the club is there, you have a responsibility as someone who also cares about this stuff, just to do it really well. Make sure the bouncers are
Let me
put in
flip it
place
for
and
you a
that
different
kind of
way.
stuff.
If that nightclub is open or shut, do you think alcohol sales are going to drop in the UK? Do you think drug sales are going to drop? I don't think they will. I personally believe, and we noticed this in lockdown when they closed all the nightclubs down, they're so overlooked. Nightclubs provide a layer of security and safety in a town centre, in every town centre, because we have 10 SIA doormen at our place. So does the Moon in the Square. So does Barso. So does 60 Million Postcard. So when you're walking through the garden with your friend here and two young lads in the gardens pull a knife out on you, who's there to help you? Because the police aren't. We are. We're going to run over, detain them, take the knife, even though we have no legal obligation to, just because it's a duty of care. When you get rid of all of us, people are still drinking on the street, they're still taking drugs, they're still smoking. And guess what? The police are under-resourced, there's no police, and there's no layer of security anymore. It's the fucking wild, wild west. Trust me. You remember during lockdown when all that stuff on the beach, all the parties on the beach, people coming down from London, it's just carnage because none of those bars are open. Like we have radio system, we can radio the police control room direct, 501 radio system, and say there's something here. And even if the police don't come, they change the cameras. I think some things in theory would be nice without, or if we could change it. But unless there's a global or national instant change at once, you don't make the change enough, if you know what I mean. Like
it needs to come from the heart of the people that are doing the behaviour, because ultimately if they still want to do the thing, they're going to find a way of doing it through black markets. And 1920s prohibition proved that with speakeasies and moonshine, right? It's just
so this is the thing, right? So if someone said to me tomorrow, right, Ty, every single nightclub's going to shut at midnight New Year's Eve this year and they're never going to reopen. Sound. I'm cool with that. Do you know why? Because it's fair. It's not unjust. Every bar, every nightclub, everywhere serving alcohol is going to close, never reopen. Sweet. But if I'm going to close and no one else is going to close, that ain't happening. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that not happening because that's not fair. I've spent my life building something. And the other thing you've got to think about is that thing that is a sin is a vehicle for me to be able to do this. If that isn't around, I don't have the time or the resources or the money to do all of this stuff that I'm doing. All the stuff that I do that costs thousands of pounds, who pays for that? These guys.
The podcast.
Not the fucking podcast. That cost me thousands.
No, that's what I mean. Like to be able to do the podcast.
Yes. The podcast, the charity fundraisers, spending all weekend doing 2 different fundraisers this weekend. I spent all weekend. I wasn't with my family, I was with no one, just doing 2 fundraisers. I'm broken today. I can barely walk from doing them, but I wouldn't be able to do them if I didn't have this income here that just ticks. Don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, there could be better things I could be doing than selling alcohol. But you're right. If I don't, someone else is going to. That was a club before me. That'd be a club after me.